Today we're going to be reviewing how to solve equations with variables on both sides of the equal sign. You're watching this video with Ms.Y Cavazos. So, before we get started, I want to review a couple of terms, a couple of vocabulary words that we're going to need for the lesson. And those two words are term and like terms. So term, you might have heard it already. It is either a single number or variable, or a number and a variable that are multiplied together like this, 2x. These two are multiplied together. That is called a term. A number by itself is also referred as a term. Okay. Like terms are the terms that have they may have different coefficients, but they have the same variable. So let's look at these examples down here so you understand what we mean, or what I mean, when I say like terms. So first we have 4c and 2c. Now you notice the coefficient is different. The 4 and the 2 are different. But they have a c in common. That makes these two pairs like terms. Why? Because they have the same variable. Next one here. We have a 9 and a 9. Yeah, they're the same. But do they have the same variable? Well, this 9 over here doesn't even have a variable. This one has an m. This one doesn't. So these are not like terms. This next example, 3x and 5y. Two terms that not give it. They don't have anything in common. They don't have the same variable. So these are also not like terms. And over here, finally, we have a 7 and a 3. They're both constants. They're both numbers that stand alone. So guess what? Those are like terms. So this is a perfect example of what a like term is. Two constants. This is a perfect example of what like terms are. Two terms that have the same variable. Okay, so next example. Circle or highlight the like terms from each section. Like terms. So we notice variable, 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 variable. Variable. The only thing is they're not all the same. Only a few of them. So the most common variable that I see is the x. So here's one, here's another, here's another. All those three, 2x, negative 11x, and 64x, those are your like terms. Okay. Next example. So if we look, variable, 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 none of them are in common. But if you notice, we also have constants. The 9, the negative 5, 21. We have numbers that stand alone. So the 9, the 21, and the negative 5, these are the like terms. And finally, on this last example, variable, 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 okay, and variable, okay. These variables, there's one specific one that they all have in common, and it's the y. Y and y. So we have that the negative 3y, the 24y, and the 22y are like terms. So hopefully this is enough explanation of what we mean by like terms, or what I mean. So now it's time to solve equations that have variables on both sides. So literally that means we have a variable here. We have a variable, let me draw a line through here, on this side of the equal sign. So what do we do? Okay. What we want to do is get our like terms together. So 5x on this side, 5x on that side. I want this to move over there to join its buddy. Or I want this to move over here to join its buddy. It doesn't matter which way you go. And I'll do this both ways so you can see that you're still going to get the same solution. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to move this x to join that x over there. So this 3x term is positive, so when I move it over, I need to subtract. So minus 3x, and I'm going to subtract it right here, minus 3x. Okay, so that cancels out. Bring down the equal sign, leave enough space here in between. If this canceled out, that means that the 12, we got to bring it down, scoot it down. Bring down the minus 8. But don't forget to actually do this. 5x minus 3x gives you 2x. From here, this is a two-step equation. So the next thing we got to do is we got to move this minus 8. Move it here. How do we move a minus 8? Well, the inverse is to add the 8. Add the 8. 0 pair, that cancels out. That means we got to bring this term down here. So 2x equals, and we actually got to calculate this. 12 plus 8 gives you 20. The very step is always, or most 90% of the time, going to be divide. So these two, remember I said they were multiplying. So to get rid of multiplication, we need to divide. So divide by 2, divide by 2, and we get that x is 10. And that is our solution. Okay. So again, what I did is I moved the 3 over to this side. What I'm going to do is redo this problem, but instead I'm going to move the 5 to this side. And I just want you to see that you're going to see the same result. So I'm going to go ahead and once again, where my equal sign is at, draw a line going down. It helps to see what goes where when we're moving things over. What I'm going to do is move this term to be with its buddy over there. And since 5 is adding, I'm going to subtract it. And I'm going to subtract it right underneath the like terms. We want to keep them aligned, one on top of the other. So this is going to cancel out because that's a 0 pair. So that means this comes down. Bring down the equal sign. Actually calculate the math there. So 3 minus 5 is negative 2 with the x. Then we bring down the 12. So plus 12. The next thing we're going to do is get rid of this number that's adding over here. So we need to move it over. Doing so, we're going to subtract the 12 because the inverse of addition is subtraction. So I'm going to subtract it right underneath because these two are like terms. So I want them aligned, one on top of the other. This cancels out because that's our 0 pair. Bring this down. Minus 2x is equal to, calculate the math here, and this is negative 20. Next thing we got to do is get rid of this negative 2. That is multiplying the x. So the inverse of multiplying is to divide. Don't forget to divide by negative 2. So therefore we get that our answer is still 10. So as you can see, I worked it out two different ways. We still get the same answer. And it's okay if our x ended up on the right hand side of the equal sign. Sometimes that happens. We still get the same answer. So next one. Next problem here. First thing I want to do is bring this down. Next thing I want, if you're used to seeing the letter, the variable on the left hand side, well, let's move this over to the left hand side. That way our two like terms are on the left hand side of the equal sign. So this cancels out, 0 pair. And then we have 4.6 minus 8.8, which gives us negative 4.2 m. Bring down the plus 8.2 equal, and don't forget this guy over here, minus 2.3. Okay, so just like we move the m to be with this other m term, we're going to move this constant term to be with this constant term. So we're going to move it over. It doesn't belong on this side. So buddies got to go with their buddies. So constant term, subtracted, it is the inverse of addition. And I'm going to subtract it to the buddy over here. Okay. Cancel out, 0 pair. So this, we got to bring it down. Don't forget that that is a negative 4.2 m equals, and it's equal to negative 10.5. Okay. The last thing to do is to divide. This negative 4.2 is multiplying m, so we need to divide it. Divide by negative 4.2, divide by negative 4.2. This reduces to 1, so we don't need it. Don't forget about the m, so we have that m is equal to a positive 2.5, and that is our solution. Again, I could have easily moved this term over to that side. It wouldn't matter. We would still get the same solution. Let's try another one, or a few more, I should say. Always bring down the equal sign by drawing a line. It helps keep things organized. So what we're going to do is, instead of moving this 5 over, I want to move this 3 instead. Again, it doesn't matter which term you move to which side. I'm going to move the 3n to be with this buddy, the other n over there. And right now, in front of the 3, we don't see anything visible. That indicates that it is a plus 3n. So the inverse will be to subtract the 3n, and we're going to subtract it right over here, right underneath the like term. Those cancel out, 0 pair. Bring down the minus 6, bring down the equal sign, bring down the 48, and then we calculate this. 5 minus 3 is a positive 2, so plus 2. Don't forget the n. We're going to keep solving. This like term is the same as this like term, so those two belong together. We're going to move it over. So right now, this 48 is adding, so to move it, we got to subtract it. We got to subtract it. Cancels out, 0 pair, down goes 2n. You don't have to put the plus. It's understood that, yeah, the 2 is positive. You don't necessarily have to put a plus in there. Negative 6 minus 48 will give us a negative 54. Our last step is, well, here's my variable. Get rid of the 2. How do we move the 2 over? We divide. This reduces to a 1. So then we get that n is negative 27. Okay. Next problem here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to move, well actually before I do any moving, I'm going to draw my line. It'll help for the solving part. I'm going to start with the y's. I want to get those two together, so I can either move this over here or move the 9 over here. I'm going to go with that. I'm going to move the minus 9y over. Right now it is subtracting 9, so I need to add the 9y. And I'm going to add it to its buddy over here. Okay. 0 pair, that cancels out. So we start with this, 3 plus 9. 12, don't forget the y, because that's what they had in common. Bring down the plus 14, equals, bring down this 14. Okay. Just like I grouped my like terms, I combined them because I wanted them together. I need to do the same thing with these constant terms. So I'm going to move this one over to that side. By doing the inverse of addition, we're going to subtract. So this cancels out, and we get 12y is equal to, calculate this, 14 minus 14, 0. And it's going to happen. In some cases, we're going to get zeros, we're going to get decimals, we're going to get fractions. It's all fine as long as you're following the steps. Finally, we got to get rid of the 12 because we want to isolate the y completely. So the 12 is multiplying. That means you got to get rid of it by dividing, doing the inverse. This reduces, so y is 0 divided by 12. It's just 0. And that's going to happen. We can get 0 as an answer. Okay, on this next problem, this one looks a little different. I had 2 terms on this side of the equal sign versus I only have 1 term on this side of the equal sign. So this is kind of obvious of what you're supposed to do. We can't move the 2x to this side because once that disappears, this is going to be left blank. You can't leave blanks on there. So what we're going to do instead is we're going to move the 8k to join this one. And the way we're going to move the minus 8k is by adding 8k. That cancels out, 0 pair. So we're going to bring down the 5. We're going to bring down the equal sign. And we're going to calculate 2 plus 8 is 10. 10k. Here is our variable. This is who we got to get rid of. This is multiplying the variable, so divide. That is the inverse. Cancels out, reduces to 1. Bring down the k. Now 5 divided by 10 is not 2. It is actually 1/2. The instructions did not say to round to the nearest something, so we're just going to leave our answer as fraction form. It's a proper way to do it. Just leave it fraction form. And our last problem here, before I start, draw my line. Okay. I want my h's together, my h terms. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move this one to join that one. How do I move it? Well, if it's adding, I'm going to subtract. Subtract it over. That cancels out. 0 pair. This, however, 14h minus 14h, well, that's just 0. So I'm going to bring down everything else. Minus 20 equals 18. And you're probably thinking, well, miss, this was also 0. Yeah, sure. Also 0. But now we have this here. Our h disappeared. It's gone. It canceled out. So don't put 0h. No, our h is gone. It's just 0. So in fact, 0 minus 20 is negative 20. That's what we have on the left-hand side of this problem. On the right-hand side, 18 plus 0 is 18. What happened to the h's? They canceled, and it's going to happen. What we have now is a statement. In this statement, we got to figure out, is this true? Is negative 20 the same thing as 18? And the answer should be no. This is a false statement. When you get false statements like that, our answer will be no solution. You're going to see some of those. The variable is it's just going to happen that it's going to cancel, it's gone, no more variables, just a statement. And you got to figure out true or false. I hope this helps you. Good luck.